Buenas noches. Esta es la última conversación que tenemos en el programa de conferencias de Zona Maco el día de hoy. Esta conferencia es presentada por Ambra y JSA y tenemos al artista Franz Klainsek que va a comentar, van a conversar con el psicólogo y sobre la mente humana y los procesos creativos. La plática va a ser en inglés. Cualquier duda que tengan, ellos podemos ayudarlos a traducción. Y bueno, pues you're welcome. We are waiting to listen to you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Firstly, my apologies. This is in English. My Spanish is muy mal, but here with Franz. Franz and I met a couple of days ago and actually had a really interesting conversation about his process, especially around the topic of simplicity and moving away from the complexity in our own minds, and how that has assisted him with his current installation in Roma Norte. So Franz, why don't we jump in and talk about the current installation, which is called Liberación, and what is this about? And if you can describe to me the process that you went through creating this new installation, and how that process has been different to some of the other processes that you've been through as an artist.
Well, the process was, it's been different from the beginning. I've never stepped into a space where I had complete, utter freedom to do anything and everything I wanted with the space. This is a historic building that's been abandoned for many years, and I pulled up to the space, and it was in a lot worse condition than I had expected or seen in pictures, which was a little bit overwhelming, honestly. But I transformed and channeled that energy into to coming to work every day with my intention to be open to receive and really be with the entire process for the first time, not just thinking about the end result, the finished work, but to really be and enjoy and partake in all the nuances from beginning, middle, and end.
So how is that different to a process that you've been before? So let's go back to New York. Let's pretend that you were commissioned. It's not a pretense, is it? You actually were commissioned to be an oil painter for a well-known gallery. During that period, you discovered something different.
Yes.
After another process that you went through, which was Kundalini. So can you talk to me about Kundalini? You can talk to me about something that happened during that process, and then how that actually impacted this commission in the gallery in New York.
Yeah, so, I believe it starts with the intention and where you're placing your focus on. And for me, it was
That's better.
That's better. For me, it was wanting to strengthen my mind, to understand the space between who I was and my mind on a larger scale. So, yeah, I had a moment of breakthrough in Kundalini, as we spoke about, where I left this very demanding set, and for the first time I felt that I was truly in control of my mind, and that my mind wasn't just wandering on its own free will. Going back to the work in New York, like I mentioned, I feel like I was always obsessed, and not that I don't get obsessed now, but I was obsessed with just the completion, with the finished element of it. And I started to think of, if we only live for these moments where the project is done, where the piece is done, when we get a certain something, we're missing out on the whole spectrum of life. If we put it into percentages, that's a small percentage of life. So to me, I wanted to have more commitment into the space. Hello? Into the space of enjoying and being with, the comfortability of not knowing, and everything else that falls in between the beginning and the end result.
So we talked a little bit about, as an artist, you couldn't step away from a piece during the time that you were creating, the beginning, the middle, and the end, actually knowing when a piece was complete. When did that change, and how did that actually change for you?
How did that change for me? I entered a space where I started to understand that more isn't always better. I started to strip and reduce and try to bring myself in alignment on a more minimalistic front. I felt that there was a lot of ego involved in trying to show, and not enough alignment in the truth of when something is just, it's done. It's finished. I think I know a lot of artists that struggle with this space. I've been inspired by a chef in particular who had a great understanding of this beautiful space, and I embarked on working with metals, and in particularly with an axe, in creating dimension and space in a very simple yet very gratifying way. I feel that it was just the journey of me as an artist, and connected with me as a man, in that I wanted to strip away layers that didn't benefit me.
Okay, so let's get into the process of that a little bit, because when we spoke the other night, coming back to Kundalini, there was an exercise that you did, something that you did that was pretty profound. And after that exercise, you described to me what happened to you when you left. Tell everybody about that, because it's really interesting.
I've been on this quest to understand mind, and to understand what the reasons behind why we do what we do for quite some time. But I was committed to a Kundalini practice, which is highly meditative practice, through challenging sets. This one in particular was one that was 55 minutes, and you sat in Indian pose, and you brought energy through your root chakra and you released it with your hands held up above your head.
So 55 minutes with your hands above your head.
Yeah. It's like this. And, what naturally happens is you want to bring them down. And there's only one thing that can keep them up. Because obviously you start thinking about food, why am I doing this, a million different things that you could be doing with your time. And the only thing is to bring yourself to breath and to bring yourself to presence and create that separation with the mind. And I finished this grueling set. Everybody in the class finished it. Our teacher would not allow anything less. And I was driving home on my motorcycle, and I felt different. I felt, for the first time in my life, I felt like a real dominion over my mind, and this wave of like you just start to understand that I could literally control every thought that I have. And if I allow a thought to happen, is because I allowed it. So yeah, there was a huge switch for me there. Highly empowering, obviously, but the work doesn't end there. But yeah, it was a huge transformational point for me in understanding that the mind, and I guess there's different opinions in this, but mind being that we are not our mind. Our mind is a powerful weapon, and it's to be used with care and diligently.
So, how would you say, as an artist that has gone on to influence your work or aid your work, help your work? Because we also talked about the opposite of simplicity is obviously complexity.
Yeah.
Right? And within complexity, some artists can thrive within that environment of the complex mind. Other artists struggle with it. How has that now influenced what you're doing? So take me into that process now with Liberation, right? The current installation in Roma. And you talk to me about the sheer joy of creating that this time round, where you had managed to compartmentalize in your own mind and remove, or more so identify and accept that there are complexities, but you were clear, you had your own truth, and you described to me the other night truly enjoying creating this installation. So since going home on a motorbike, after, I don't know, the cathartic experience of Kundalini, and having that moment, a lot of people go through mindfulness, they go through meditation, they go through therapy. We use CBT, for example, cognitive behavioral therapy. We use ACT, acceptance therapy. But it's very difficult often to continue on with that process. How have you managed to continue on with that process, and how has it affected you today?
Well, I made a crucial mistake after that, and it was to believe that I had arrived somewhere. And the work never stops. We're constantly in evolution, and we will always be in evolution. So once you think you arrived somewhere, that rug gets pulled pretty hard, and that happened for me, and I had to rebuild that, but build it in a way that was sustainable, and also understanding that the work never stopped. How that manifested into my work is that I found ways to physically and mentally put myself in a position where I had an opportunity to strengthen my mind. For example, I did this one piece in Art Basel 2018 that consisted of, it was a geometric shape that I adapted to the space that I was working with, and it consisted of balancing 41,650 nails on their head, one by one, in formation after I drew it. It took me 26 days, 26 back-breaking days on my hands and knees of about 16 hours a day to be able to finish it. But yeah, that's how it manifested in like, let's not talk about it, but let's do it, you know? Let's put this into your work, into your art. This is who you are, and and I'm thankful I found a way that I could connect with and to be able to create and stay true to that.
So would you say by removing complexity or removing that complex or looking at things more simply, that's empowered your focus? I mean, to do that is either a weird form of meditation or self-torture.
A little bit.
Who would want to put all those thousands of nail heads, you know? So is that more the result for you, that you have more of an empowered focus, more of a freedom to look at a piece or to approach a piece, and you can complete it more easily?
Absolutely, because I understand now what it is to be driven by fear and what space I'm creating from. You know, I'm very in tune with myself and knowing like this is that, and you're not staying true to yourself, and I just don't allow that anymore. The work could be good or bad to whatever viewer, but one thing that's going to remain constant and true is that it's me. It's who I am today.
So Franz, the artist today, had a bit of a different upbringing. Tell everybody what you did as a child and what you were focused on as a child. Or as an adolescent, as you're growing up, and we also talked about this the other night, which is the point of perfectionism and what it is for us mentally when we go through different careers. Often we don't just have the one career in this day and age. You know, you don't go along to the same factory and get the gold watch after 50 years and that's all you have to think about. You actually have multiple careers, and some people have multiple careers at simultaneous times. You used to play a pretty intense sport and you were pretty good at it, tennis. Let's talk about the difference between the focus and the perfectionism that's required within pursuing a professional tennis career. A lot of people don't know, but I was a professional ballet dancer for 10 years. It's a very similar kind of perfectionism. It's a very similar kind of focus that you have to have. And when you move from that into a corporate environment, I found it hilarious because I looked around at the people that I was working with and I thought, these guys don't even know how to work, because they didn't have that same grit, that same rigor that you have to have as an athlete or as a performer. So talk a little about that, and I'd like to understand how you deal with the layover of that perfectionism now as an artist, and whether it's beneficial to you or whether it's a negative.
Yeah, you know, it's fascinating because as I mentioned to you the other day is so tennis was, I played tennis from 6 years old till I was 18, 6 to 8 hours a day, and you know, that perfectionism as in ballet and dance is very intense. You know, you practice and you aim at a little cone, and if you miss that cone, you did a horrible job. And the chances of you hitting that cone are 20 30% on a good day, if that, at a high level. So yeah, it's you're constantly feeling bad about yourself because you didn't do something, in that perfectionism. But at the same time, there's something that I truly appreciate about that perfectionism, and I believe if you're able to consciously manage it, you can do some great things and understand that it took on a different definition for me, because perfect is what? Does it even exist? But to pursue something with such passion and diligent, just obsession to accomplish something, I think that's a good thing. I don't view that as
sometimes.
Yeah. If you could understand that it's not going to feel great all the time, but you could do some. You could either create or destroy, but if you could channel that into creation, it could be very, very powerful.
I have a bit of a pet peeve that I want your opinion on, and that is we live very much in a subscriber world, right? So we subscribe to Netflix, we watch what we want to watch, we have a Spotify account, it suggests to us what we want to hear, we take in pieces of information now very much in a very narrow prism of view. And I love art, right? I suppose I'm still an artist. I just can't do what you do. But I go to a lot of exhibitions, a lot of galleries, and we seem now and this all relates to simplicity and complexity, we seem now to live through our phones. We live through an app. We live through Instagram, right? So you go to the Koons exhibition, for example, in Mexico City when it was here, and I think 90% of the people that were there on that Sunday were there to actually take a photo and Instagram that pic, but they weren't actually in the moment. They weren't in the present moment of experiencing what that artist, like him, love him, it doesn't matter, but they weren't actually going through that gallery space and experiencing something. It's more about getting the pic, being at the destination, creating a photo for your audience to see. What's your opinion of that as an artist? People come into your space, you've created something, you've spent months creating it, blood, sweat, and often tears. You cried a few times, you told me, doing the latest one.
Sure did.
What's your opinion of that in this narrowed down kind of prism that people are observing things, and are they really in the moment? Are they really experiencing something for what it is?
Yeah, listen, I believe technology in a whole, not to just pinpoint, one social media platform or another, but it obviously has a great ability to make things easier in our life, but yes, it ultimately can take us away from what I believe is, to be in the truth of our existence. There's a battle between what nature provides in its understanding and what technology is doing to mankind. So yeah, I suffer myself from it in my own way. I catch myself on the phone more hours than I would want, and we're at war with being pulled from our space into there's just so much wrong with it, the insecurities it brings in people, and it's a problem.
So let's jump to one of my favorite topics, which is talking about simplicity, which is what this is about. And that's what we term in more neurolinguistics, NLP, than we do in psychology. In NLP, we call it monkey chatter, right? And in psychology, it's more about, mind chatter. And we all have this, right? We all have the voices in our head. Ideally, you're not really hearing voices in your head, but the reality is we have negativity. We have things that stop us from progressing and achieving our goals. And I do a lot of work with organizations, individuals, performers, athletes, around resilience and around learning how to actually compartmentalize those negative thoughts in your mind. And as I mentioned before, we approach this through different techniques, whether it's cognitive behavioral therapy, recognizing that there is a negative thought or process and accepting it, working on it, and changing the tape in our mind, right? So that chatter in our mind creates doubt, insecurity, even anxiety. As an artist, simplifying things and having the Kundalini moment and being able to hang on to that, you talk a lot, Franz, about freedom. You talk a lot about your truth. How do you manage the monkey chatter? How do you keep that outside of your remit so that when you're working, you can actually focus on achieving the end of a piece or a specific outcome, or as corporate people say, achieving a goal, right, or a personal goal?
Yeah, there's all these different tools that I think each one of us connect with in our own way. It could be meditation, exercise, some type of sport. Obviously helps in a lot of ways. Being with nature, all these type of different things. But for me, it becomes it's ultimately a muscle that's been weak over time that needs to be strengthened. And as you're able to pull yourself out of that monkey chatter, that muscle goes strengthening, and you just do it. You pull yourself out. Stop thinking, or change your thought patterns. But yeah, ultimately, it's just a choice. There's a lot of work we have to do and to get to a space of understanding that, I think, and we're all in our own journeys and paths to get there. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, just do it. It's a choice. Like, just make it.
So would you say now you have an ability to control that?
I do, and some days are better than others. It's not that I'm just riding on my horse in green pastures, but I do believe that I understand that I am in control of these thoughts, and I'm constantly aware of what's going on, and it's not always perfect, but there's an awareness to it, and that makes it happen less often.
And to bring it back to the art, how does that help you as an artist? The difference to the before, where you looked for what you called your comfort zone, you looked for what you thought was your comfort, your security, compared to now. So back in New York, it was comfort zone, financial security, getting commissions, developing yourself as an independent artist. How does that compare to now, and that process now, and how you feel through that process now?
I believe all of us to do something that is great in what our instrument can do is not necessarily in the monkey chatter, but it's more in presence and consciousness and using the mind with intention. So I feel that with this understanding of this space, I'm in a constant commitment to evolve as an artist, and bringing myself to create and keep exploring and working from that space.
Okay, so there's a very well-known, well, not so well-known maybe, doctor in the US, and she's also an abstract artist, quite an interesting lady, Nancy Hills, and she wrote a book in 2018 called The Artist's Journey. I don't know if you're familiar with it or if anyone's familiar with it, but it really is about the power of simplicity and constraint. So, as Da Vinci said, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, right? And she builds her story around that. She's actually a lecturer at Stanford. Multum non multa in Latin, which means, much, not many. Okay, so it's the same principle of simplicity. Going deep rather than going broad. Okay, so staying within that context. Therefore, employing simplicity as the constraint itself to actually achieve pieces. Would you agree with that? Or how would you put that in your terminology?
Would I agree with that? Yes. I believe we are in our own way with that monkey chatter in just overdoing it in creation. I feel like, and things could change, but for me, the mastery and the work in progress of my day-to-day is in understanding what's just, and not just understanding, but actually doing it, and like what is just enough and it goes beyond just art. It's in conversation. It could even be in a hug. Like what is just the right amount of everything. It's the mind, the monkey chatter, just is constantly trying to overprove itself.
It certainly can. So, if you were able to give one piece of advice to a young artist where process is concerned, where being able to focus and maintain focus, there's a lot of distractions as an artist. It's not just in the creative process, it's not just in trying to realize what it is that in your mind and portray that, whether it's painting, whether that's installation, whether that's, it doesn't matter, whether it's performance art. What would that piece of advice be, understanding the journey that you've been through, and you've been exhibited internationally, you have had commissions in New York, you would be seen and looked up to, and that will continue over the years. So what would that piece of advice be to a young artist?
That's tough. I believe what would be the advice? We're all in our own evolution, but if I was to give one piece of advice, and it's very simple, but and I think we've heard it all before, is stay true to self. Create from where you are. Be ultra committed to the work and trust that the evolution of yourself as an artist is going to take its journey, and enjoy it, and you know, the more that you could be present and accept that it's not always going to be easy, but it is the journey, and ultimately it's all beautiful, and just enjoy it.
Cool. Do you have a question of me?
I have many questions of you.
Okay, go.
Now, I know you were an excellent ballet dancer, and from our conversations, I see that you have a great ability to understand where the misalignment in the misalignment that one is having in feeling a certain way that's not beneficial to their mental state. How did, you know, it's similar to the question you asked me, but how did dance, how did understanding, because in dance you're so in your body, and you also have to work at like separation of mind, because you know it is so much feeling and being in tune with your body. Do you see, and you know, obviously there's the path, but what do you directly correlate that ability that you have now to dance?
I think, well, there's a lot of study, so it's not just a God-given talent. Dance maybe, but psychology, resilience, coaching, things in that sphere, that's a lot of work. But what does translate is discipline, for one, similar to you with tennis. But I think one of the most interesting things about the space of being a dancer is that you are within your own sphere. So you never look outward. You're never actually, yes, you get coached, you get criticized, you get taught. But the most important thing is that you're constantly within your own mind, and you're constantly analyzing yourself, both from a physical point of view, but also mentally. You can't go out in front of 4,000 or 5,000 people and stuff up. So you are constantly preparing all day before you perform. It's different. An artist, a painter, a sculptor can lock themselves in a room, nobody can see the process. A dancer can do that as well, but eventually you have to go out on stage and you have to sell tickets and you have to get it as close to perfect as you possibly can. So I think that introspective thought all the time, also preparing for anything. You can't be nervous as a dancer. You know, I can't be nervous as a coach to actually sit with people. I have to be the person that's strong and in control and able to manage a situation. So I think what does correlate is that ability to almost from more of a neuro-linguistic point of view, what we do with people from an NLP point of view is when you have a negative or a destructive thought process or a fear of something, is you get people to imagine and play a new tape in their mind. Now, before I go out on stage, I have rehearsed that in my head all day. So you're visualizing, you're constantly visualizing, you're constantly looking at that perfect picture that you're going to present. So I think that correlates, and it's a discipline that's taken from being a dancer into what I do now.
The power of visualization.
Totally.
Yeah. Would you say that's your number one tool, is visualization?
I think it's certainly it's super strong, whether you choose to do that through meditation, whether you choose to do that through more formal types of therapy, whether you choose to do that through the new like I call it mindfulness. You know, everyone's on this mindfulness journey now, and it doesn't really matter how you choose to do it. Like you said previously, it's what works for you. And we all have negativities, we all have monkey chatter, we all have things in our life that we have to deal with, and the first thing to do is to identify that. Once you can identify it, and we spoke about this the other night, Franz, is you can put it in the corner. You don't necessarily cure it or solve it, but you manage it. And when you put that in the corner, you can get on and do what it is that you need to do, and you can pick it up on the way out the door. To bring that correlation back to dance, it's like every good director or dancer will say to you, leave it at stage door. So if you've had a fight with your partner or you've had a car accident on the way to the theatre, leave it at stage door, pick it up when you leave. You have to have that clear train of thought and that clear mind to fully focus completely and to complete the goal that it is that you're setting out to do.
Amazing.
Can you give me a hard one?
Yeah, a hard one. The one that somebody who understands the mind and human behavior at the level that you do. There was some work that I did at the Project Liberación in understanding and accepting ultimately what happens after this physical manifestation. I'm just curious to know what it is you believe happens after this experience here on Earth.
Oh wow, put me on the spot.
You wanted a hard one, here it is.
Well, in 2022 they're opening the first human fertilizer cemetery. That's a fact, I read that in the news today. So maybe we all just become fertilizer, I don't know. We grow interesting plants. It's not a bad idea. Wow, Franz, really.
You asked for it.
I've thought about this a lot, and I've looked a lot at religion, I've read a lot. I think it comes back to energy. I think it comes back to that we are a part of the universe. However you want to interpret that, you can interpret it in your own unique way. Whether that's through a formal religion and going to a church and praying and worshipping a God.
Yeah.
God is an energy. I think it's important that we do have faith in things through this journey. It can keep us on a path when sometimes in that faith you can find in many, many different things. But I would probably, go back to that thing that we are made up of electricity. Our neurons are electricity. We are made up of water and energy. And I think we go back to that in some way, shape or form, not the human fertilizer cemetery, but, we do actually go back to wherever we got that energy from in the first place. Some people call it a soul, but I think we do continue to evolve. I think there is something more, and people call it just a number of different things, not to get religious or political.
Amazing. James, you're incredible man, James. Well, you handled that question great. Thank you.
You're an asshole.
Oh, man.
So, in closing, Liberation is now. It's in Roma Norte. If you haven't seen it, go along, see this. It's amazing. It's an incredible installation. What's next, Franz?
What's next? I still there's more work to do here in Mexico City for sure.
So is Mexico City home?
Yeah, I believe it's going to be home for at least the next year or two. Yeah. I'm currently working on this project, this land art project. I have this cultural center in Roma also that we are actually launching today. If you guys are around, it's going to be a nice evening, a nice event. Where I'm able to give the opportunity to artists to present and showcase their work, and it's actually a beautiful circle for me to, I remember the first person that gave me that opportunity. So it's a beautiful house, and we've created a beautiful space, and some incredible artists are participating at this house, this cultural center that we built. That's my passion for right now. We'll see.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Franz.
Thank you.
Been interesting. And I'll come to the party.
All right, I'll see you in a bit. Thank you, everybody.